Welcome again. This is another episode of the Azizat Growth series, and this is brought to you by Azizat Development Foundation. And we are exploring the forefront of empowerment and economic transformation in Africa. So I'm your host today, and my name is Peju. And in this podcast series, we will be uncovering stories and strategies that are driving Africa's prosperity. It's going to be educational and it's going to be insightful. So I'll say sit tight and enjoy this episode. So today we have with us Jessica, and Jessica has been in this industry that she works in for many years, and she has a wealth of knowledge that she'll be sharing with us today. So, Miss Jessica, please tell us a little bit about your expertise and what you're into.
Thank you very much, Peju. Hello, everyone. So yeah, Peju has already introduced me. My name is Jessica, and I am an investment banker. Currently, I work as an assistant vice president in an indigenous investment bank here in Lagos, where I provide services or financial advisory services to businesses and to institutions in the area of mergers and acquisitions, capital raise, project finance, capital restructuring, corporate restructuring, all in that area. And I've been in the industry for over 15 years. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Miss Jessica. That's quite interesting. Okay, so today's episode, we're going to be looking at the topic surviving tough times. And this is managing your personal finance. We know that a lot is happening right now in Nigeria and across the world, actually. Like there's the telltale of how a lot of people are experiencing inflation. People are complaining about the income levels, their expenses, and there's so much happening out here. So I would ask a little bit of questions I feel like can be very helpful in this season that we find ourselves, especially with individuals and small business owners. So what are the most important financial habits that you think small business owners should develop?
Okay, thanks, Peju. So I think I'll just start first by saying what personal finance is. I think personal finance is just generally managing your money and just everything around saving, budgeting, investing, everything around it, just what has to do with your money. And now if you replace that with business, and you see that it's just pretty much managing the finances of your business, and you're a small business owner, this is very important. And that said, to your question about the kind of habits that business owners should develop that will help them manage their finances. I have a number of habits I think that they can start to build on and adopt. I think the first thing would be keeping records. I know when you start small businesses, it just feels like, well, this is my business. I don't owe anyone an explanation about what I do. But it's very important for small businesses, just as it is for large organizations, like keeping records. It just helps us to track what is happening with the business. Like when I speak to small business owners, sometimes I'm asking them about their finances and their performance. They're really not sure. Sometimes they go, well, I'm not sure. Sometimes things are great, sometimes things are not so great. But then I ask them, how do you assess what you don't measure, and how do you even measure what you haven't recorded? So I'll just say that for you to be able to know that, you need to keep records to know when the business is making a profit or loss, because your data speaks to you. It gives insights as to what you should be doing differently or what you should continue doing. So yeah, I'll say first is keeping records. And the next thing is creating a budget. We've all heard budget. You can't talk about personal finance without reference to budgeting. I mean, what's that? Personal finance is budgeting, pretty much that's what it seems like, but it's setting up a plan for your expenses and your revenue. At the very least, what budgeting does is that it gives you an indication of what your expense and revenue expectations will be from month to month or period to period that you're tracking. And it helps one to plan better. So you know when you're spending a lot, when to cut down, when you need to check it, and how to make plans and follow. It also follows from keeping records. So keeping records, creating a budget. And then I'll say one thing that I see people do make mistakes for small business owners is separating personal and business funds. That is very important. It's the easiest thing to do is just fall into that very important habit of, and just develop the habit as early as possible. You want to get that done. Just like we're told typically, say keep your business out of your pleasure. I think that's how it should be. You can also apply that saying in this regard. So try to keep separate bank accounts, but it's where it's possible, and that is very encouraged. Because I've seen where businesses have run into problems when there's no separation between the finances of the business owner and the business actually. And you end up either using your personal finances to support the business and vice versa, not being able to track or keep record of that. So, I mean, it's very important to do that. One other thing I'll say is to pay yourself a salary. Very important. It just goes hand in hand with keeping separate business accounts. I mean, as much as you're an owner of a business, you are like an employee of the business as well. So you used to make sure that you're paying yourself as you do the rest of your employees. So you're seeing the business as a separate entity, as a business, which it is, and then yourself providing services to the business, either as an owner or services as an employee. So just see yourself as that. It helps in reinforcing financial discipline, which is a very important habit in personal finance, especially for businesses. And I'll say that a couple more points is constantly develop yourself. You can't be stagnant when you own a business. The world is very dynamic. It changes so quickly. It's rapidly changing every day. Technology, everything is it just seems different. Like you go to bed one day, the next day something new is happening. What skills do you possess that will make you very competitive and that might be needed tomorrow that you really don't have today? So you want to commit yourself to regularly improving yourself. And what it does is that it translates to giving you a growth mindset. Because not just for your business, you're seeing yourself as you're constantly developing yourself, you're also applying that mindset you're having to your personal life, to your business, because you're able to better identify industry trends and see opportunities because you're on top of your game, wanting to improve yourself and your knowledge. And I'll say again, then pay attention to your bottom line. I mean, it's very tempting to see revenue as the thing. Sometimes I see people talk about, oh yeah, this business makes you so much money, makes this much money. What does that mean in profits? If you're making that much money, there's also cost elements that go into this business that you have to be able to account for. So I'll say don't just get carried away with looking at the top line, that's your revenue or the monies you're getting in. After taking out all of your costs, you want to know, should I really be in this business? Is it really making sense to be here? I'm looking at the bottom line, is it making profit? And then the last but not the least, I'll say is your savings and investments, which I see as two separate things, which is very important also in personal finance. I mean, just like you're seeing your business as a separate entity, your business should be able to make investments and save for rainy days. I mean, you don't need to wait for moments where there is a problem or you have to wait for money to accumulate. I think that's the wrong mindset that people have, especially in personal finance. We just feel like, oh, no, I can't invest now. I have to have a truckload of money, bank full of money to be able to make any sort of investments. But no, it's something you have to start to build a habit, no matter how small. Give yourself like a plan. Every month I'll set aside this money to invest. And it's a habit you're building. It doesn't, so when eventual large money comes, maybe from a big deal, you get a transaction. When the money comes in, you already have this mindset where you just want, where to direct the funds to and how to put it in place to grow your business. So yeah, those are the habits I would say for business owners to develop in the area of personal finance.
Yeah, that's actually very insightful. And I like what you iterated about budgeting. So budgeting is important. But if we look at business terrain like Nigeria, where you go to bed on Sunday and you wake up on Monday morning and fuel price has increased by 5%, 6%, 7%, sometimes up to 20% increment in fuel price. And before midday, some other businesses that your own small business is dependent on, they affected all these prices before midday. And you already had your budget for the month. I will spend XYZ on this and that. And now everything is so expensive. It throws a lot of people off. The price hikes are unimaginable. You even find people that have written invoices retracting the invoice and sending out a new one, and then everybody's just thrown off guard. So it brings me to the second question. So how can SMEs manage financial challenges during tough economic times?
Okay, that's a very important question, Keju. And yeah, that's what happens. I mean, even just for myself, going to the market, I feel like when I go to the market 1 month, I'm able to buy items for a certain price. By the time I go the next month, it's over 50%, more sometimes 100%. And I'm thinking that's just in 1 month. So I'll
Mm.
say, imagine if one didn't even have a budget, how that would throw one off. Because I mean, first you didn't even have a plan for how the money was going to be used. And if you don't have a budget, that's even crazier. So first, I'll say for tough times is manage costs or cut costs. I know lots of business are trying to do that. It's important because during tough times, the focus is really on survival. You want to survive first. You want to be afloat. If it's only, I know there has to be a saying about it's only when you're alive you can do things. So try to keep the business alive first. So survive as a business, so you're in a place to be able to grow your revenue. So anything that is not necessary to keep the business afloat can be suspended. I mean, that's a very good thing to think about because even during economic downturns rather, we see serious governments that are trying to manage expenditure, introduce some austerity measures in order to manage their public finance and their expenditure. So that's what I think businesses should do. Start to cut costs as much as possible. All those things that would be nice to have, start to become essential to have to keep afloat first. And then you can now start thinking of what next to do. And then I'll say plans to increase your revenue. I mean, there's no point cutting costs when all you're just going to be doing is the same thing. If you're cutting costs, you're reducing costs, there's an extent to how much you can cut costs for it to be reasonable. So now it's about having ways to increase or improve your revenue. I mean, you have to really become innovative around the products that you're offering or your services. Be flexible. I mean, this is directly not related, but I'll say that apply the saying that necessity is the mother of invention. Because I'll give an example, like during the lockdown, businesses became, I mean, they went on their toes. People started to do other things that they were not part of what they initially set out to do in their business because they had to be innovative to take advantage of what the environment was. People that maybe were not making face masks or getting them to order. You see people going to logistics, like I need to get face masks to put out there. What you want to do is as much as possible, generate income to keep your business afloat. So keep yourself, be flexible, and this follows through also from improving yourself. That way you're getting knowledge, you're able to identify opportunities where you can step in. Don't say, oh no, we are just a food business. We cannot do that. Food business, yes, you come back to that, but first you need to survive. What am I going to do? What opportunities are there for me to take advantage? How can I offer my products better to make it different? Innovative thinking that will come into that. How do I fill in the gap for where I'm seeing things, where there's a need that I can step in to provide? I mean, that's something that is very important because the bills need to be paid and it comes from just developing yourself. So cut costs and find a way to increase or improve your revenue. Two things I'll say that one needs to pay attention to.
Yeah, so that's actually a very, very important point to cut costs and manage your expenses. But this can be a very challenging one for small business owners because a lot of small businesses already are working with a very tight budget. So this will bring to the question of, can you give us like simple steps, okay, that a small business owner can take to improve their cash flow management? Because we have, for example, in our network of small business women, we have people who would, they have their plans, they have their goals, they have their budgets that they believe they would work with. And in between, they find themselves stuck for one reason or the other. And, they're probably on loans and they can't meet up with the obligations of the loans, or they can't meet up with obligations of supplying their customers. And they just find themselves in this very tight fix. So how do you think these businesses can improve their cash flow management?
Cash flow, very important. Just like they say, cash is king. Indeed, it is. So in terms of improving cash flow or managing their cash flow, I think something I've noticed with some business is just going back to the area when I was talking about keeping records and knowing or focusing on your bottom line. I see sometimes on businesses, there's a lot of credit. So when you're seeing that it looks profitable on the surface, underneath is just driven by credit. So when you're keeping your records and saying, oh yeah, I sold this, I bought this and I sold it this way, I've made this profit, but the profit is not translating to cash in your hand. So one of the things I'll say is if it's a business that is heavily geared towards doing credit sales as much as possible, I can't say it's completely possible to take it out, but to manage it or reduce it as much as possible, really drastically cutting it out because you want to continue to survive. Cash is king. You need the cash to buy goods, to pay salaries if you're doing that, to pay for some business expenses. So I mean, if you're always getting old, selling on credit, chances are that you will not be able to meet your cash obligations. So I think that is important. Find ways to not sell or encourage your clients or customers to pay when they take the goods from you, because you also want to have cash flow to take advantage of opportunities that come up in the market. Going also to having good accounting habits, just same as record keeping. If you don't keep records, just like I spoke earlier, you don't know when to make changes, when to cut back, or when to just, apply some different techniques to opportunities to your business or take advantage of opportunities that are present in the market. Also, I'll say inventory management. When I said I went to the market, like I go to the market 1 month, by the next month, the price has increased.
Yes.
I remember one time I went last, was it previous month? And then I was asking myself, why didn't I just buy a lot of all these things to keep? If I was in business, that's something I would be thinking about. If I was running the business, I think inventory management. This is a high inflationary environment that we are in right now. We don't know how much longer it's going to be. So we have to adjust ourselves to what the economy is, saying. So as you're offering your creditors, you try to get good terms on your credit from your creditors, good terms for your suppliers rather, sorry, when you go to get your goods. Try to get good terms from them, as well as you're presenting good terms to your debtors that don't put you in a very difficult position. Know when to buy more and when to store. You want to buy more because you want to buy it cheaper because you know that it's going to increase. The cost of replacing your inventory has to be something that you factored in. And yeah, I think it's just around managing inventory, having good accounting habits, and just manage your credits and your debtors all falls under inventory management, because you want to be liquid. And if an opportunity comes up for you to get a great deal, if you don't have the cash at hand, you're not able to take advantage of it. So yeah, that also ties into your personal finance habits, which is savings and investments as well. You want to do that so you can have something to use when there are chances, opportunities like that.
Well, thank you for that insight. So very helpful. So, generally they say knowledge is power. And I, for example, I ventured into things where I didn't have 100% knowledge. And in between, I stumble and I'm like, oh, well, I wish I would find someone to, put me through, or someone that's had experience in this field. And a lot of people face this kind of problem. They have an idea, the idea is brilliant, but they probably don't have the full technical know-how or knowledge of the business they're in. And if they, put themselves on the journey, it's like putting the cart before the horse, and they face all these bigger challenges that could have been avoided. So with this, I would ask for you to share with us the benefits of having a mentor in business, especially in financial management.
Yeah, very, very important. Very important. Mentors give guidance. I think that's one key thing that they do. They've probably been in business much longer than the person that is trying to get into the business. And so have gone through a lot of the challenges or have experienced a lot of the things that the business owner will be struggling with, especially then in the same industry. So it's good to leverage on their experience. I mean, you don't want to have to be the one to make all the mistakes and bear the burden, just like you talked about, oh, I should have done this differently, I didn't know this. Mentors will give that guidance. That's the benefits that they come with. Like, if it's possible to have a mentor, yes. And sometimes you might not necessarily have a physical mentor that you go to talk to all the time. Thankfully, we don't always need to have that. There are books to read that will provide some of the people that you think have gone the path of where you're looking to get into. They'll have materials and may have written or books that talk about their experiences and maybe the challenges that they faced in their work. That's something that one can look into, because when these mistakes are made, very expensive mistakes, and might cost the survival of the business at all. So yeah, I'll say mentors are quite good because they give the kind of guidance that business owners need and just helping them to navigate. And sometimes you want that support. Business is not all fancy and rosy. It all doesn't always go great. Sometimes you have tough situations. When you see that someone has lived through, has experienced this and survived, it gives you the strength. It helps you to realize that I can actually do this and my business will go through it here. So that it helps to build that resilience in business owners that, yeah, this is a phase. I will get over this. Yeah, I think mentors are very beneficial and helpful to have.
Okay. And this brings us to the last question. So, can you share with us the key factors that we could consider before taking a loan for business growth? Because it comes very easy to people's minds to say, oh, I want to expand my business, or I want to grow my business, I'll take a loan, you know. And these people are definitely not people that are poor managers of resources. Maybe they have the idea. For example, I have this brilliant idea. I'm going to set up a poultry farm. I know everything about taking care of birds. I know everything about the health, the feeding, the this, the that. And I feel like, okay, maybe if I take this loan, I can, grow this business and expand it. But then there are some intricate things that one needs to consider. So can you share with us what these key factors could be?
Okay, Kuji, thanks. Debt or loan, that's one very interesting topic because there's this tendency to just want to splurge or do things when there's access to capital in terms of debt, like, oh yeah, I have this money. Well, it's not your money. That's the first thing to think about. Anyway, be clear about what the loan is needed for. What do you need it for? It's just, like I said, it's tempting to get excited about it. Feels like, oh, this is access to cash. I can do what I need to do. Maybe splurge on some new project that I've been thinking about for some time. But it's helpful to have a clear goal for what the money is going to be used for. It should be something that improves the business to increase returns. That's very important. So do your analysis, your feasibility, if you need to do that, your projections to be sure. I know it's difficult to eliminate every kind of uncertainty, but you want to take calculated risk, reasonable risk. So as much as possible, reduce uncertainty, but just outline the clear goals for the business or for the monies that you're trying to take. And next analysis to do is trying to understand the debt sustainability. Can this loan I'm going to take and the business generate enough income to service the loan, both for the interest expense or the interest payments and the repayment of the facility and the cost that is coming out? So you might think, well, I have to take a loan. I want to grow my business. Okay, great. To grow the business is not just a fancy idea. Great. So that's not bad. I mean, just know that the business has the potential to generate enough income to repay the loan, because there's no point taking a loan that you cannot eventually repay and then having to start running away or hiding from your creditors. So yeah, those two things are important. And I just want to say one question to ask also, before you start thinking of taking a loan, have you thought of other sources of financing? Are there other sources of funding? Loan should be the last resort. Are there other areas where I can get capital, like maybe a grant that is being applied to business in the areas where I'm in my industry, where it's available to small business? Can I take advantage of that as well? Can I get soft loans, which is still a loan, but then on very favorable terms, which is much lower than what the prevailing market rate will be? Yeah. So think of those first. Are there other sources of income that I need to do? What do I need the money for, really? And how well can my business sustain the payment of the revenue of the facility or the loan that I'm taking? And in terms of interest rates, I mean, that you can't ignore that the cost of borrowing money, that's what interest is, which is what you have to pay for having access to the capital to the loan that you're taking. This one is almost out of one's control. So you want to be very careful when you think about that, especially now in this environment, high inflationary environment. We've seen how the MPC, that's the Monetary Policy Committee, has consistently increased the NPR, that's the benchmark rate, from what it was. I think it was less than 20% at the start of last year, and now we see is inching towards 26%. And as the interest rate, the benchmark interest rate increases, as the NPR increases, then the cost of borrowing generally in the country for banks or other providers of credits will also increase. And I think why this is important, not just the cost of borrowing money, for personal or business loans, there are multiple times, sometimes the interest rate changes throughout the lifetime of the loan that you're taking. You want to be sure. As the NPR is increasing, there'll be adjustments that creditors are making to your own loan that they're providing. You could start off looking on very favorable terms. You say, okay, well, this is just 12% per annum. That's great. Before the end of the loan, you're paying 25% or 26%, almost 30%, That is not something you can control. Yeah, it's very helpful to have that in mind so that the loan doesn't become a burden to your business rather than being helpful for the growth that, the growth that is supposed to be. Yep. That's what I'll say.
Wow. Thank you so much. There's a lot to unpack from everything you've shared, like so much to unpack, and it's been quite insightful. So thank you so much, Jessica, for sharing with us. We hope to bring you back again soon.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It was really
Yes,
good. Thanks.
we hope to see you again. So,
Yeah.
everybody, thank you for tuning into today's episode. Stop by again to listen to our next episode. And if you're inspired to support our mission of economic empowerment and growth, you can visit our website. And the address is www.azizadev.org. And you get all the information you need to know about everything we do and how you can plug in to connect with us. You can also connect with us on our social media channels, the Aziza Development on Instagram, on Twitter, not Twitter anymore, it's X now. Yes, Facebook. Do connect with us if you wish. And always come back, share this information. It's useful for individuals. This particular podcast is useful for individuals. It's useful for business owners as well. Thank you again, Jessica.
Thank you.
Yes, do have a lovely, lovely evening.
Thank you. Have a productive one yourself. Yeah, bye.